did anyone try to do something, try to play around with some things to get more understanding of what we did? I think what we did last week. Please, what did you even talk last week? Somebody answer.
Look at this.
I don't know that you guys can remember what we did. Sorry, somebody's talking.
Okay, yes, that function.
Somebody is answering.
Somebody's already talking.
We did functions.
Okay, functions. Thank you, T. Sorry, I don't know. How do you pronounce your name?
T-very.
T-very. Okay. I didn't want to murder somebody's name. So, okay, T-very, thank you for that. So were you able to try play around with functions in JavaScript? See what you can use functions to do. Did anybody try that?
I did.
Okay, who is that? Chizogam. Okay,
Yes, I
that's
did.
nice. Okay, cool.
I
Were
did too.
you okay? Who is that?
This Joyce.
Joyce. Okay. Chima also said he did. Nice. So out of how many people that were on the call? That the only 3 people, before people that have spoken now. All right.
I think that's
Okay. Aridun said she did. Okay. Miriam said she did as well. Okay, cool. Nice. So the truth is, no matter how we want to spend, how long you want to spend in a class, right? If you finish in the class and then you don't practice, you drop it and leave, it will leave you as well. Because what we do in the class is not enough for it to sink in. What will make it sink in is you trying to practice some of the things that you've done, and then try to play around with it with different scenarios and see the results you get. That's how it will stay. And that's why you understand it even more or even better. So yeah, let's try to practice more after the sessions. I know we might be busy and all of that, but it's really for your own good so that you don't waste time staying in classes, and then in the end you forget what you've learned or what was taught in class. All right, so today we with these arrays and then the methods that we have. I mean, how you can basically manipulate objects and arrays, because you would actually do that when you start, whether you're manipulating objects, arrays, you come across them a lot, and you might need to do 1 or 2 things with them or all of that. And when I say objects arrays, it's like real values, real things that you're working with, right? So yeah. So I'm going to start with objects. And so from what you can see, so an object in JavaScript is a data structure, like we said before. We already established that in the previous classes. Is a data type first. That's what we established before. So this time is a data structure that represents a collection of key and value pairs, right? So an object has keys and value, and they are pairs, they come in pairs like that in the object. And in the object, and then the object has properties, right? So those keys are called those elements, those key value pairs basically are called the properties of an object, right? So now each key in an object is a string or a symbol that is associated with a value, right? And this value can actually be any data type. It could be a string, it could be a number, it could be an array, it could be another object. It could also be a function, right? So it could be any data type basically, but it's still a property of that particular object. So let's see, so let's basically create an object that either has any of these data types within them. So I think this is what we did last week. So I'm going to create a new file here. Say, let me call this objects.js. So so I want to create an object first. So let's say okay, let me create a person object. So say person, like yeah, a person. And then if you remember, I said an object will look something like this, right? And then it has the name, which is the person that I've given to it, and then this opening and closing curly braces with the properties inside of it. So a person is a human being, right? And they have properties. We people like us, we have properties, right? So we have head, we have eyes, we have hands, we have so let me just point out some properties that human beings have. So let's say name. A human being can have a name, and this person's name can be James, right? Then the human being can also have age, and let's say this person is 90, and then they could have they have hands, or let's not go to parts of the body. Let's say complexion. So this person can be dark or fair. Let's say dark in complexion. The person can also have height. Okay, let's stop here. Let's say the person is a dancer. So let's say what's it called? Let's say a hobby. Yeah. Let's say yeah, let's say hobby. Yeah. The person's hobby. So person's hobby is dancing. Yeah, so let me see. I know you might be wondering. Okay, now his name is James, so he's a guy. All right, so so this is an object, right? Which has like different data types inside of it. So yeah, I wanted to add something. So let's say I have let's say okay, let me just say features. For example, I just want to add something. So we save eyes, nose, and mouth. Okay. So yeah, so this is an object, right? That contains different attributes, that have different attributes, properties, right? This is a person object with different properties, or yeah, different attributes or properties in them. And each of these properties have different data types, at least some of them. Yeah. The features is an array. If you hover on it, is a string array. Then the hobby is a function, which is called methods. When we talk about when you have a function inside an object, it's a method. It's called a method. We have the complexion, which is a string data type. We have the age, which is a number, and we have name, which is also a string. And the person is an object, which is also another data type on its own. So I just wanted to illustrate some of these things that we mentioned here. So we have string, name, array, function, and an object. Okay, so I didn't put an object, so they can have an object inside of them. So say so let's say, okay, yeah, the person can have an address. Yeah, let me use that. Perfect example. So yeah, so this is also an object inside of this object. So the person has an address, and the address have like street, city, state, and all of that. Right? So, and you can still have another object inside of this object too, depending on the objects that you're creating and the properties they have, right? So yeah, so this is an example of an object, right? Now, I'm going to comment this one out for now and leave it. We're going to be needing it later. So, let's go over to some of the things you can actually do in an object or features of an object. I've mentioned that it's the key value pair, which is what we've done here. Let me comment it. So the key in this case is the name, the value is James, the other one is age, the value is James. So we have key values, basically, they all have keys and the values of those keys, right? So the key is like the name of the value or the name of the property, and then the value that it is holding, basically. Then the next thing is assessing these values. So we have, how do you, you have these objects like this, or you have another object. So let's basically use this object actually. So we have this object and we want to be able to assess the the properties of this object, this person object. We want to be able to refer, we want to be able to maybe get their name, or maybe get the street of that person, street where the person lives. Or maybe you want to know what that person is doing at that moment or at a moment, right? Anything basically. So with objects, there are two ways you can actually assess the key value pairs in an object, right? Or the element in an object, or a property in an object. And the first one is through the dot notation, which is just using a dot. How does it work? So, so basically, if I want to access the name of this person, I'm just going to call the name. That's the name of the object, right? Say person, and then I will do a dot. Once you put a dot, you're going to see that it will list out all the properties in that object. So you can see hobby, features, complexion, age, address, all of that. So depending on what I want, I can say, okay, I want the person's features. Yeah. If I say I want features, And then I do console log. So if I do console.log this and I run this code, say node, what's the name of this file? Object.js. Okay, there's an error somewhere. Error. Cannot find model this. Okay, so where are we? Where am I? Lesson. Okay. So I need to find my way into name. Right. So if I run that command again, I'm going to get the array of features because the features key has a value of array and the array is this, right? So you can see that that's what it logs for me. So what if I change this to, say, the hobby of this person, right? Hobby is a method, so I have to call it. So if I log this, what would it give us? So it returned he is dancing. That's because this is a method that is doing something, right? It's doing something. And did I intentionally put it because dancing is an action, dancing is an action word, Abi? That's if I'm not wrong. I didn't study English. So, yeah, dancing is a doing something, like it's actually an activity. It's an activity, something that you're doing, right? And that's why I use a method. I didn't just put a string or something. So, because this method can actually do something, right? A function can do something. So, so that's an example of using dot notation to access an element in an array. The next way you can actually do that is to use the bracket notation. This one they do suggestion for me. Okay, the bracket notation, right? Which is something like this. So when you how do you do this? It's basically similar to this. It's just that instead of you saying person dot so or person dot this, you just say person and then you put in your opening and closing brace. Oh, is it bracket now? This four corner brackets. I don't know the name again. So yeah, this bracket basically. Then you call it, and then the key of whatever you want to access, you put it in a string, right? So I'm going to put a string here, and then I'll say maybe address. So I want to get the address of this particular person. And then if I console log this, let me comment this out. If I console log this and run it, I'm going to get the address object. Remember, the address is an object. So that's why I got this address object. So I have the street, I have the city where the person stays, I have the state, right? Now, I can also go further using another, because this is an object. I can go further and say, okay, get me the specific street of that person. So I'm going to use another way of accessing the object, which is the dot notation. So I can say, get me the street of the person. So if I run this code now, it's going to return only the street, which is 10 Adeolu, Adeola, Odeduku Street. Let me not be murdering people's this thing. So yeah, see that. So from this person, we are able to access the address and the exact street that we want, right? Using the dot and then the bracket notation actually together, because we have an object inside of another object, right? So you can also decide to get what's the other one? Say features now. Yeah, this is an array. So we can do
That's where we cheap.
have a question. Okay, what's going on here?
Outside the town. Yeah, you get it in the past. You get it in the house, yeah. Half an hour, yeah. You get it at yeah.
All right. So please, I don't know if Henry is here or another of the what's it called? The people that started the meeting. Please just try to, or if you can, when somebody on meet like that, please just mute them so that they don't distract us. All right. So like okay, the feature, we don't have street inside of feature, and even if we do, we can't access it like that. So I'm just going to take that out. And so if I log this, we're going to get the array, right, of features that this person has. And then if I want to get maybe one of the elements inside of the feature, we already know how to actually do that, right? So would this work? Yeah, so I can use the array, the way of accessing an element in an array, because we know that the feature is an array. So I can't use dots because I can't use dots to access an element inside of an array. I can only use that for objects. So I can now say dots. Maybe I want to get the mouth. So mouth will be index. Mouth will be index what, please? Anybody can answer. I want to get the mouth of this person.
2.
Index 2. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll just have to put 2 here. Sorry, 2 here. Then if I run this, we're going to get the mouth of this person. Yeah. So this is us trying to access elements in an object, and then even if the element of the object or the property of the object is an array, you can also be able to go inside of the array and do something with it. And then if it has an object, you can also do something with that object. I mean, go inside of the object that is inside. Even if it has another object again inside of it, you should still be able to go inside of that particular object and get whatever value you want to get using the same method, basically. So this is basically you assessing objects and assessing objects, right? The properties of an object. So the next thing is adding or updating properties of an object, right? So let's say, so the way this object is, you can actually increase the properties it has by adding another object inside of it, right? So how do you do that? Remember, we said for you to access an object in an array, you have to use either you use the object notation or you use the, what's it called? Or you use the dot notation. So how do you now add, so let's say updates objects. Yeah, updating, adding, updating and adding, they are both the same thing. So one of them is just that you can either replace an existing object with another one. That's the value of an existing object, or you can just change it, basically. So how do we do that? Let's try. So first of all, let's try to add something. So we can do person, and then we can do person dot maybe maybe occupation, person dot occupation. I will now say the person is let's say the person is a developer, right? So now if I do console dot log person, that's the name of our object, you should see that a value with occupation has been added, like a property. So let me run this. So you can see now we have, after the address object, we now have another key value pair, which is occupation, and the value is developer. So this is how you can basically update your objects to and add more values to them or more properties to it if you want. Then what if I want to change one of the existing values? That's updating now. So I can say the person complexion, maybe the person now rub bleaching cream, now change from dark, person now becomes a white person. So now I want to, James have decided to bleach. So now he has become a fair person. So let's go and update his information, maybe in the database or something. So what can I use to do that? How do I do that basically? How do I update this object now and say, okay, oh, this is a James have bleached and he's now fair. So you can basically do that by saying person, let me not use dot notation this time. I can use this. So let's say person dot complexion, yeah, is now equal to fair. So he's now fair, or maybe white, yeah. So I don't know if nobody is white, sharp. So, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. So, so if I run this now, we should get an object that have complexion white, and then we still have our occupation here because we did not remove this. So this is how you can basically update your object, change the value of your object, and play around with your object basically. So there's another one here where we have deleting a property in the object. So we want to delete a property of an object. Maybe you want to delete one particular thing. So let's say, for instance, in this person's feature, you want to delete the features of the person. You don't need it again, right? How do you do that? You don't want it to be in that. Or maybe when you're in the course of running something, right? Maybe you're running a test and then a certain thing returns an object. So let's say, for instance, you have an automated test that maybe clicks on a button, and the response that it gets, or the response that your test is getting from that particular this thing, is an object. Now, maybe you want to manipulate that object, but there are some things that it is returning that you don't need, right? So you can basically just say, okay, before you start operating on this object, delete these things, these properties, right? So how do you do that? I can say, so how do you do that? All you just need is to basically call the keyword delete. I don't know if this thing is spying on my voice. Delete. And then what property do you want to delete from this person? Is it the name? Is it the complexion? Is it the feature or the address, the hobby, whatever it is? So let's say I don't want this person to be dancing again. You can just do person dot hobby. Yeah. So it will basically go into that person object, look for hobby, and delete it. So now if I run this, I'll get a new object that does not contain hobby. That our hobby method is deleted. It's no longer there, right? It's not here anymore. So now you can delete it. If, for instance, you're doing test, you can just store this in a variable and then use that new variable to do what you want to do, because the new object will be stored in that variable. So that is one way. That's a way for you to basically delete something or a property from your object. Then methods, I already talked about that. So if you have functions that are defined inside of your object, it's called method, just like we have here, right? So, and this method, you can basically do things in them. So you can have a situation whereby, say, let's say you say this method can be like, I can change this to say, okay, say maybe greet function, right? So this function does the greeting. So greeting it greets people. So you can now say something like, let me do some concatenation here. So I can say, I use my string literal, sorry. I can now say James, no, James. So I can do something like this dot name is saying hi. Yeah. I'm actually using this so that I can illustrate what this means in the context of an object in JavaScript. So if I run this code, or let's say if I say person dot get, this is hobby is no longer existing, so this is greet, and I do, okay, let me just put this inside the console log. So this person can just say, oh God, what did I do now? So this person can just, decide to greet somebody. And then if I log this, I'm going to get, oh, sorry, I'm getting function greet. I didn't call the function. Let me call it, because I didn't call it. So if I run this now, I'm going to get James is saying hi. How was I able to, I don't know if you are, wondering why I didn't use person.name here? Did anybody wonder why I did not use person.name? I mean, that's the way I said we are going to be assessing the properties of an object, right? So does anybody have any idea? I hope I'm not talking to myself, Sha.
Yeah, could it be because of the ant sign or the ant sign? Also, yeah.
This is just a way of if you're using, if I think I mentioned the concatenation in my previous classes. So you can, if you have, like, you want to add, you want to concatenate or join variables and strings to print out a sentence or something, or do something basically. You can either do this using this, what's it called? You can either do it this way, basically, or you can say, I can take this out and do this dot name, comma. They are the same thing. What I did before is the same. So it's not the or this. You understand? They'll still print the same thing for me. James is saying hi. Okay, I just need to add space here. So James is saying hi. Do you understand? So you can choose to write it anyway, this way, or take out the plus, put comma here, or do what I did before. They're basically the same thing. So now you see that that's not the reason why I use this. Do you understand? Not because of the dollar sign or the bracket here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's not the reason why I used it. Any other person wants to try? Okay, so let's not waste time. Is anybody saying something?
Yes. Okay, I want to say the thing is this dot name. The name is pointing to the name on the person, like James. So he's saying console.log this dot name, that name on that James. So he's saying pick James when you say this, since it's still under the same person's calling braces. I don't know, but that's what I'm feeling. It says pick this, and then he's saying I
Okay.
don't know.
So yeah, you are close to. So basically, this in JavaScript refers to so it has scopes, right? If you're using this in the global scope, it means maybe a window or the node environment, or and if you're using this within the context of a function, it means you're referring to that particular function where you are doing that thing. Now, in this case, I'm using this in the context of an object. It could be used also in the context of a class or something, or constructor. But this case is an object. So I'm saying, so this still refers to this particular object. So using this means you're still referring to this person, right? So it's the same thing as saying person dot name, right? So, but maybe I don't want to type person. I can just say this, right? So this keyword refers to that same object. So it's referring to the object that you are basically doing that thing within that context, right? If I come outside of here and say this dot name, um yeah, so this will work here because both of them are in the same context. But let's say if I have this object inside a function, and then I now come out without maybe a constructor or something, and then use this, it will not work, basically. So when you say this, just know that they are still referring to that particular object, right? That's why if I hover on this, it is showing me the structure of this person. Are you seeing it? I don't know if you are seeing these things here, right? It's showing me this, and then it's giving me the object, the name, string, age, complexion, everything that we have inside of this person, right? So yeah, that is that. And that's why I'm able to use this here, because I'm still referring to this person here, the person object. I don't know, the English language is making it look like I don't know, but I hope you guys understood what I said. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. So I think that is for object. Um, so yeah, that's basically for objects. I mean, there are in the number of things you can actually do within, depending on what you're doing, or depending on what you want to do or what you need to do, basically. But let's stop here for now and move to the next topic of today, which is arrays. Arrays. So arrays in JavaScript is also a data structure that is used to store multiple values in a single variable, right? So you can actually a lot of values inside of an array, and they will all be stored as a single variable. So it helps with organizing data in an ordered collection, where each of the value is stored at a specific index, specific location, starting from index 0. We already established that in the previous class where we talked about data types. We mentioned arrays, right? So today we are going to be doing some array manipulations and Yeah, so the first thing is declaring and initializing an array. We already did that last week, but maybe just to refresh our mind. So let me just create a new file, call it array.js. Sorry, let's remove this. So we can have an array, say, maybe array of numbers, right? So you can have an array, an empty array for the first time. So we can declare this array. Yeah, so this is initializing an array basically. Then you can, so this is declaring an array, sorry. And then you can initialize it by giving it values, right? So you can basically do numbers.push. I think we did push that day. Yeah, so you can basically put in things inside of the array. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And then if we console.log this array, we will have oh sorry, I was running the wrong file. So this should be node array.js. So yeah, so we now have the array with elements inside of it. Remember when we declared it, we didn't have any values inside of them, but we use this second line to push values inside of the array. So yeah, now it has values inside of them. So then let me not waste much time on here. We talked about accessing elements in an array in the previous class. And we said we can basically access arrays using their index. So using the index of the array. So let's say index 3. Do we have up to 3 index here? Okay, yeah, we should. So yeah, index 3 is 4. Index 2. So basically, array is index based, and you can access the elements in that array using their index, right? We already talked about that. Then modifying the elements in the array. That's updating or changing the elements in an array. So we can not changing, updating. So you can basically, I already did that already. So I just used array.push to add items to the array. I have updated it. I can also decide to, let me just put this here and comment this out. So I can also decide to say, I can basically update the array by calling numbers and saying numbers index, say maybe index, this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's say index 4, and then I'll say the value would be 7. So if I log numbers now, I should get a new number added to the array, which is 7. So what I just did is I said, okay, add a new element to this array at index 4, sorry, after number 4. And the element should be 7. So that's what I just did. So I just updated the array, right? So you can do this. You can also use push. So you can say array.push, maybe 5, comma 8. So you can push 5 and 8. Or you can even use these two. I mean, it doesn't make sense to be using this kind of thing in code, but I'm just showing you the different ways you can actually do that. So if I run this, I'm going to have an array that has 1, 2, 3, 4, plus 7, then 5, and then 8. And that's what you can see here. So we have an array that now has 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, and 8. So yeah, this is also, these are ways you can basically add or update the elements of an array. So now let's say, for instance, you want to, maybe we have, you want to change the value of an array, a specific element in an array. I'm going to take this out now. So let's say I want to change what is at index 0. What we have there is 1 now. I want to change it to 7, right? So I can still do the same thing. And then if I run this, we're going to have 1 is no longer there. We've changed it to 7, right? I've just succeeded in changing the current value of index 0 to 7. So yeah. All right, so we have some array methods. So we're going to be talking of array methods. So we have some common array methods that you can use. So array.push is what we just used. We've just used it to push some elements in an array. You can push a single element. You can push multiple elements using array.push. So array.push basically adds an element to an array from the back. If you notice what happened when we used array.push, let me comment this out. So when we use the array.push, it basically, if I say add 10, right? It will add 10 behind from the back, right? So if I run this, we'll get 10. So 10 was added from the back. So that's basically what the push does. So the push method adds an element to the end of an array and now returns the new array, right? The new array that you have, which is this is the new array. Then we have array.pop, which basically removes an element from the back again. So it removes the last element of an array and then returns the removed element for you. It doesn't return the new array. It returns the element that you remove. That's what it will return for you. So if I say array.pop pop 4, okay, I don't even need to specify the number, what I want to pop. If I just use array.pop, it will remove the last one and return it for me. So if I say, if I take this and put it here, let me comment this out. So it will return 4 basically to tell me that this is what I removed from your array. Yeah? So, but basically, it removed number 4 from this array and gave it to me. It says, okay, this is what I removed. So that's what this particular pop does. It removes an element from the array, the last element, not any element, the last element from the array, and then returns that particular element for you. So that's what array.pop does. So we talked about array.pop, we have talked about push. Yeah, then
I have a question.
okay, please go ahead. Who is that?
Okay, so for the pop, so what if you want to use the last the last element in the array in another place? So how do you get it
Yes.
back?
Hold on. Maybe after popping it, you now want to use it again later. Is that what
Yes,
you're
yes,
saying? Use
yes,
the
that's what I'm
single
saying.
element that you. I don't understand. Sorry. Let me come again.
As you
You want
removed
to
4 now
use
from it,
it
what
for
if you want to use it for another function or something? Can you like save
okay.
the 4 as as a variable, something
When you
like that?
do, so basically you can assign this to a variable. Say, so let's say let removed. Yeah. If I log removed, it will still give me 4. If I log removed, it will still give me 4. Do you understand?
Yeah,
So
I do.
whatever you do, basically, if you decide to, maybe you want to use it somewhere, just create a variable and store it in the variable, basically. All these things we've been doing since. If, for instance, I want to use it, even when I did array.push, yeah? So let me even do that. So when I did array.push, say numbers dot push, and then I now pushed maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 to the array. So if I want to use this new array that is generated somewhere else, all I just need to do is to create a variable, say maybe new array, or name it something else, and then store it in that variable, and then proceed with what I'm doing. What it means is that anytime I call this variable, I will get the new array. If I call this variable, I'll get the new array. So no, new array. Okay, hold on. What happened now? Hold on. Array, okay. A new array is a number. What number? Okay, hold on. So if I log numbers in this case, I'll get, okay, the new array here. Why is it logging 8? What is 8? Oh yeah, okay, sorry. Array.push returns the length of the new array, basically. So that's why it's logging 8. So it's returning the length of the new array, not the actual new array itself. Yeah. So yeah, so if I store it in a variable, it's maybe I want to use the length of the new array. Then you can store say maybe new array length in this case, because it's the length it returns. So every method basically has what it returns, the return type or the return value. So for push is returning the length of the new array, right? Print new and returns the new length. Yes, so it returns the length of the array. So yeah. And if you remember, we have like 4 elements here and we have like 4 here that we added to the array. So the new length of the array is what it basically returns. So if you store this in a variable, it means maybe you want to use the length of the new array somewhere. So I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. So let's proceed. So the next thing we have the shift method. The shift method basically removes the first element from the array. So if you're wondering how you can remove elements from the beginning instead of from the back, right? You can now use the shift method. So if we call an array, so shift. So if we call our array, say numbers array.shift, yeah, so I want to, so if I do this and I console log this, so this shift returns the removed element, basically, just like the pop. If I do this and run this code, it's going to return what is 2? Numbers.shift. Oh, sorry. I have this here and I have this here. Yes. So what happened initially, yeah, was that this first one will remove 1. Then this second one inside here will also now remove 2. So the one that this particular one is removing is 2. That's why I have 2 here. So I'm just going to comment this. I thought I caught this before. So I'm just going to comment this out. If I comment this out to return 1. Does that make sense? So 1 was removed from this beginning because we are using shift. If we use pop, it will remove from the back, from the last. We use shift, it will remove. So they're basically doing the same thing, just that they are removing from different positions, right? Now, we used push to add from the back, right? There is also another method called the unshift that you can use to unshift. You can now use to add elements from the beginning of the array. So if I do, let me just log numbers. So if I do numbers dot on shift, and then I put in, okay, we already have 1. So let's start with where 1 will stop. Yeah, things that would come before 1. So I can basically add this, right? So these are numbers. Sorry, let me take this out. Just trying something. So if I do numbers dot on shift, it will basically add these things to this array from the front. So if I log this, we'll get the new array starting from 0, -1, -2, -3, then 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is the new array that we have. And we can on shift, let's see, const new returns the length of the array as well. Okay, so yeah, so the unshift basically returns the new length of the array. Okay, so we have the next method, which is the length. We've used this array dot length, this length before. So the length basically returns the number of elements in the array, the total number of elements in the array, or even in a string. So you can use it for strings, you can use it for arrays as well. So there is the length method, right? So if I say numbers dot length, it will basically return the length of the array for me. So if I do this and I log and I run it, we'll get 4. So the length of our array is 4 actually. The length of this array now is 4. So, but what if I comment this out? Yeah, I've added this. So let's see the new length of the array. Yeah, 8, because we added some elements here, and then we are getting the new length of the array. So you can actually use this on a string. So let's say we have maybe on name, and then the name of this person is Chocoloko Bango Che. Okay. I don't know. That's not somebody's name, Sha. So this is, I just wanted the long string. So this is a string here. We can get, in case, ma'am, if we start counting this now, your eye might start turning you. So you can use the dot length method. So you can just say name. This is name. This is the name I want to use. Oh, I don't know why you're telling me name is. Okay, so let's add an S to it so that it will differentiate the. I think there's a keyword in JavaScript name, and then it's deprecated. That's why it's stroking it like that and telling us that it's no longer in use. So, where's my terminal? So now if I run this now, I'm going to get the length of this string. So it means we have 15 characters in this string. So it can be used for arrays. It can also be used for strings. Then the next method we have is the splice method. And this method basically adds, removes, or replaces an element in an array. Right? So it basically modifies the original array. So if we have so let's say splice, and then we have numbers, right? And then we call dot splice on it. Yeah. So looking at this, you see that the splice method has a starting value, a delete count, which is a number, and then it returns an array. So it basically you put a starting number, which is also 0 based, right? Then it removes elements from the array. If you need, or if you give it instruction, it will insert a new element, depending on the instruction you give it, basically. And then it will return the new array containing what you deleted from the array, right? So if so this basically is expecting like 2 arguments at least, which is the starting point and then what I want to delete, right? That's for deleting. Basically, remember that I said this particular method can add, you can use it to add, you can use it to remove, you can use it to replace an element in an array. So we're going to be trying these 3 things using the same method. So the first thing is, I want to, let me bring this down so that I can be seeing it. So the first thing is I want to say I want to so the first thing here is add. Maybe, yeah, add. So I want to add an element somewhere in the middle of this array, somewhere in the middle. So let's say maybe after number 2, I want to add something there. So now I'm going to say, I'm going to give it the initial index where it should start updating this array from. And if I give it that index, it will ignore anything before that particular index. So let's say from index 1 or from index 2, right? Put a comma. I want to add something, take note. So for this reason, I'm not going to remove anything. So I'm just going to add 0. So 0 means don't remove anything, just add. Now the next set of numbers I'm going to be putting is the numbers I want it to add. What I want it to add is what I will put in next. So I can say after index 2, add 4, add another 4, then maybe add 10, right? So this is the instruction. Now, if I console log the new array, say numbers, let's see what it gives us. Okay, so now we have 1, 2. Remember, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 before. We now said from index 2, right? So it means that it will, after index 1, it will come to where index 2 is supposed to be and now start adding things. And that's why it pushed, it now added these 3 numbers here. And that's why it pushed 3 to this location. And then we now have our initial for this. It will not print the new array. So let's see what it prints. I'll comment this now. So yeah, it prints the what it deleted, right? what it prints is what was deleted. But you remember that in this instruction, we didn't delete anything at all. And that's why you can see an empty array here. We did not delete anything. So that's why you can see nothing being returned. Had it been we deleted something, then you would have seen those values that we deleted from here. So this one is for adding. The next thing this particular method does is that it removes, right? So it removes an element from an array from any position, depending on the position that you stated, right? So let's see that in play. Let's say I have all of this inside of this array. And I play, our array is big. So now I want to remove some of these elements from the array, right? So if I do, I'll have two console logs here so that we're seeing them at once. Console.log numbers, which is the new array. Then, so it's control numbers.splice. So I want it to start from index 2, or let's say from index 3. Yeah, start from index 3 and then remove like 3 elements. Remove like 3 elements. So let's leave this for now. So this instruction now is start from index 3, remove 3 elements. That's all. So if I run this, we have 2 answers on the screen because I have 2 console logs here. So the first console log is returning those elements that have been deleted from this array. And that is 204. If you remember, I said start from index 3, and index 3 is 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Which is 2. So it means delete 2, 0, and 4, right? Now let's confirm this. Remember, this highlighted part now is what was deleted from the array. So what we have left is 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and 44. And that's what this second console log is logging for us. So this is the new array that we have left. Does that correspond with what we expect?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you can. So this is another way for you to. So now you can actually use the splice method to remove an element from any position, unlike the pop that will remove from the last and shift that will remove from the first. Those 2 methods cannot go into the middle of an array and remove something. No. But if you want to remove an array from anything, from any position, then you are welcome. You want to remove, you want to add, you want to change, then you are welcome to do what? Use the splice method to do those manipulations. You can manipulate the array anyhow you want it using the splice method. Updating, removing, adding from any position of your choice. So yeah, so the same thing goes with updating. So let's say, for instance, I want to change I want to change these 3 elements to something else. So what I'll do is change these 3. Yeah, so I'm going to still leave my 3. Then I'm going to now put what I want it to change it to. So I want to say maybe change it to 20, 30, and 40. Yeah. So if I run this, oh, sorry, this is deleting. So I'm going to put 0 here. Okay, no, yeah, I'm going to put 3 here. These are the 3 things I want you to update. Yeah. And then giving it the new value that you should update it with. So what it will do actually is that it will delete these 3 things and replace it with these 3. That's what this method will do, basically. So if I run this, we will get the first array showing what was removed from the array, the things that we replaced. And then the second array is showing the new array, which contains the new things that we updated in the array. I mean, the new numbers that we used to replace what was removed. Does that make sense? So with splice, you can basically remove. You can add, remove, and update an array. And this is not limited to numbers. So let's say, let me even use another array to show this. So let's say we have const names. Yeah, so we have a string. Okay, let me use this suggestion. Awesome. So now we have these plenty people here. I don't know why all of them is sounding James, John, Peter. Okay, so we have these, right? These names, and then we want to maybe remove Peter and Paul, these two twins. I want to remove them, right? So now James is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2. So what this means is that we're going to say from index 2, remove 2 items. Yeah, and that's it, right? If you run, we're going to say names dot splice and then give it the instruction from index 2, remove 2 items. And then we're going to log the new names. Let's see what is remaining. If I do this, very good. So yeah, what was removed? Peter and Paul was removed. That's the first array that you can see here, which is what this one returned. Then what is left? We have James, John, and then it jumped. We now have Mary, Jane, Grace, Mercy, Joy, and Peace, right? So we were able to remove this too. What if you want to now remove and replace it with something? So let's say we want to remove those two and then want to replace them with them. Want to replace them with the Okafor and Ude. Let's use Ola. Right? So now I want to remove those two and replace them with these two names. So if I run this now, I'm going to get the first two, which is the two things that were removed, Peter and Paul. And then I now have a new array that contains James, John, and then now we have Okafor and Ola added, replacing in the same position where Peter and Paul were, because basically we are updating in this case. We are updating, right? So yes. Now, we can also, the same way, we can choose to not delete anything and just add. So if I run this code, we will have, the first one will be an empty array because we did not delete anything. And then the next one will now be the new array that was added, the array with the new names that was added. And you can change the position. Oh, this two is not static. You can say, okay, we'll start from index 10 if we have up to index 10, right? And then do it. Or you can say, okay, start from this last place actually, or start from the first place, depending on the index you put there, basically. So that's what it will do, right? So now, Okafor and Ola is now in the last position because I say any modification I want to do, go and start from the last place. So that's why we now have Ola and Okafor in the last place. Unlike when we had this place to be 2. We had Ola and Okafor here. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Do you have any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm assuming that it
I
is
have
clear
a
then.
I know
Okay,
that
please go
this
ahead.
is there, but what if you just want to go to the code and make the changes rather than using all these features like the push, the pop. You just go to what you have. Let's say we have this John here. You just come here and remove the John by deleting it, like not using the command, but just going to this place now, put your cursor and just delete on the keyboard.
Yeah. If you delete it, you delete it. If you delete it, you delete it, to change it will now become the new array. Do you understand? But why you need to understand some of these things is because in the course of writing your program or in the course of writing code, there might be situations where you need to modify something. Do you understand? And
Yes.
maybe your first array, you are using it for something, but you want to now do some changes to that array to accommodate something else you want to do. I don't know if that makes sense. Just like the example I gave with an object, you can be writing an automated test, and maybe your website or maybe a button click or maybe an action returns an object or even an array. And you want to remove some part of those things that you don't need for future, in the future of your code or in the future of your test now. It's not like, I don't mean tomorrow, but like somewhere else further down in your code. Do you understand? You don't need it. I've encountered situations like that where a, a GA4, a Google Analytics event triggered when an action is performed on a form, returns an object. I want to validate that object, but it is returning some additional things that I don't need. Do you understand? I had to find a way to manipulate the object. If it's an array, you need to find a way to manipulate it so that you'll be able to remove those things that you don't need. I don't know if it's making sense. I
Yeah.
don't, maybe if you expect it to return, give you, maybe the object should return, or the array should return name, age, maybe your customer data, and things like that. And you want to validate that you're actually getting those responses. And maybe announcing something like maybe one number like that that you don't even need, or maybe something, or in the course of writing code, you might just find out that there are things that these things are returning, but you don't necessarily need those things, basically. Instead of using it to just fill up your this thing, or even causing confusion for you in your code, actually, it can even cause confusion for you in your code. If it's going to cause confusion, then why not delete it or take it out, remove it? I don't know if that makes sense. Just remove it. So how do you now do those removal? That's where you need some of these methods. If it's an array, that's where you need some of these methods so that you can actually remove it, because you cannot go to the code and be manually removing it. In fact, you can't even manually remove it because in some cases you are writing code that is dynamic. And then what do you want to remove? You might not even be seeing it. You might not even be seeing the actual value that is returned, except when you do console log inside your code. I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense to you.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So
Thank
in
you.
that case, you are not seeing what is being the why you are even saying this one is because you are seeing James, and this thing. What if you are not even seeing the actual value of the array? You are not seeing the people in the array, and you want to remove some things. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So exactly. Um. All right. So let's proceed. No other questions, right? So the next one we have here is index of. Index of. Right? So this particular method basically searches for a specific element in an array and returns the first occurrence of that element. First occurrence. Yeah. So let's say we want to, maybe we have plenty, say we have a Messi, have another Messi. Let's put plenty Messi so that God will be having plenty Messi. So Messi, maybe here we have Paul. So now I want to use the array method index of, yeah. So I can say names dot index of, right? So I want it to get the index of, say, okay, let's say index of Paul first. So what this index of does, it's that it will go into this array and start searching for Paul. The first place where it sees Paul, it will return the index of that particular location for you, irrespective of whether you have another Paul's inside the array or another Mary or another anything. The first place it encounters that particular thing you give it, it will stop there and then return the index of that particular position for you. And if we run this, we're going to get the index of Paul, which is index 1. So this is 1, right? But what if I want to get the index of this second Paul, right? How do I now do it? Maybe the Paul I want is the second one. I don't want this first one. The index of this first one. I want the index of the second one, right? So that's, how do you do that? You can now add another parameter or another condition. And this second condition is the location where it should start from, the index. So the first element, the first argument is the search element, what you want to search for. The second one is the second one, which is optional, depending on your need, what you need, right? The second one is now the index where you should start the search from. So now I can say, if I want the second Paul, I can say, okay, don't start. Start after this first Paul. So maybe start from index 3 or maybe index 4, right? Start from there and start searching the search. So if we run this again now, we're going to get another index, which is index 6. That means our second Paul is at index 6. And you can check it by yourself. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So now in the first case where we did not add the second argument, we got the first Paul. Now with this second condition, even if you have another Paul here, it will ignore that one to just get the first Paul that it gets. The first, anywhere it encounters Paul first, that's where it will pick Paul from, right? So that is index of for you. So yeah. So yeah, let's move to the next. These next 3 array methods are really very, very important, very useful, very, very key, depending on what you're doing. So last week when we were talking about functions, we did something like some things, yeah, like adding up the sums of array. I think I deleted them in the course of JSClass. Okay, let's just proceed here. So I'll comment this out. The first method we have here is reduce, the reduce method. This particular method executes a reducer function, right? A function on each element of that array. And then it results to a single value as an output. So it basically, the reduce method returns a value, a single value, right? And I put some scenarios where you can actually use the reduce method. So it's used commonly for summing up numbers, flattening arrays, and maybe doing some more complex calculations for an array, right? So it's an array method. Now, this is the syntax. The array, you call the array dot the reduce method. And the reduce method takes in a callback function. Now, that function is the reducer function. And this function would actually be called on each element of that array, of this array that you are calling here. This callback function. I don't know if you remember what I said about callback functions. But this callback function will basically be called on each element of this array. And the callback function has parameters. The accumulator, right, which is what is holding the total of the current total that you have. We'll see that in play. Then we have the current value, which is the current position of the element that it is being called on. Then the index of elements, we already know what index is. And then the array itself. Now, some of these elements are optional, especially the index is optional, the array is optional inside of these parameters. So these are parameters it can take, but it is not compulsory that you pass all these arguments, right? Or this is not compulsory that you give these things. The most important ones are this accumulator and the current value, right? And then it returns, and then the initial value, right? The value where it will start from. So these are what this function would take, and then it will now do whatever it will return a single value. All this plenty grammar now will just return a single value for you. So let's say, for instance, we want to sum the numbers of this array. I want to get the total of this array. Somebody can do the mathematics and give us the total, so that by the time we do this, we will know what the total is. So remember during the last class, we were using a loop, right? We're using a loop. So we're saying something like for let I, which is index, equal to 0, and then when I less than numbers dot length, so numbers dot length, then I plus plus. So this is what we did. Something like this is what we did last week. And then I said so we say let's sum, for example, let's say let's sum, initialize sum, and then I said sum, or maybe total. So total value of array. Let me just put something that makes sense. So total value of array will now be this, now be plus equal numbers index. Yeah. So now this is so we just wrote a for loop, right, to return the sum of this array for us. So if I run this and say console log the sum of array, or the total value of array, I will get the total of this array. Okay, it says it's not a number. For numbers dot length, numbers plus plus. Why not a number? Okay, let me see. I equals 0, I less than I equals to this dot length. So let me see what I is first at this point. So this is we trying to debug what's going on with the code. So if I do numbers with I, you have to actually learn this because you're going to be seeing it. So let's say I console log that. Okay. If I run this, total sum will now be, oh yeah, okay. So I've seen the reason why it is not, can anybody tell me the reason why that was returning not a number? Because we're able to, numbers index I is returning numbers, they are all numbers here. Yeah? So at each iteration, we will get a particular number, which is the numbers in this array. But this mathematics here is returning not a number. Did anybody notice what I noticed in the course of debugging it? Anybody? Nobody? Wow. I hope you guys are following me, Sha. All right. So what happened is total value here is not initialized. Like it's not yeah, it's declared, but it's not initialized. So there was no value. So that means at this point it is undefined. If we come here, it is undefined. See that? It's showing that total value is undefined. And you cannot carry number and plus and say undefined plus a number. It will return not a number because undefined is not a number. Does that make sense? Undefined is not a number. So what we are doing here is we are saying that total value, which is undefined at this point, is equal to undefined plus numbers. So undefined you cannot be plusing undefined with a number. It will return not a number. So how do we solve that? We can just basically initialize it with 0 and say, okay, this total value is a number, right? So if you check here now, the type has changed to number. Initially, the type was showing any. At this point, the type became undefined. And that's why we got not a number. So we can do equal to 0. So now at this point, it is 0. It is a number, but it is 0. So now what we will now do is at each loop, it will add, in the first iteration, it will take 1 and add it to 0 and then store it here. At the second iteration, it will take 2 and add it to 1 and store it here to become 3. Third iteration like that. That's what will keep happening. So we can actually achieve this without writing this loop and without having this loop to run these number of times. Right? To get us the array. Simply use the reduce method. How do we do that? So we can just say, so let me just store it in a variable, say, okay, let's say total value of array is now equal to, I will now call the numbers dot reduce. So the method is recognized in JavaScript. So you can see, once I started typing, it said it's a method, is an array method. So if I do reduce, right? So you can see that reduce takes in a callback function, like I call it the accumulator, which is the previous the accumulator, which is the previous value, like the way total value was equal to 0 here. That's what they mean, right? At this point, total value is 0. So the total value, just see it like the total value here is equal to 0, which is, so that's the, what's it called? That's the place of the previous value. So the last value of whatever operation that you're doing. Then, which is also a number, a type of number. And then the current value, which is now maybe 1 at this point, at the first point, which is also a number. And then the index of that current value, the current index, right? And then the array. But these things are optional, like I said before. So depending on what I want to do, will now determine the parameters I will put here. So for me, I just want to get the total sum of this particular array. So what can I do? I can just declare a variable, say, the previous value. I can put the previous value, say num1. Say num1 should be the previous value. And then the current value. So, okay, let me call this sum. Sorry, let me use sum. So say sum, right? So the current value is sum, and sum is equal to 0 at this point. And then num, then the number. So the numbers in the array is numbers in this array. So now I'm going to arrow function, and then I'll say sum plus num, right? And I can do this, then do this. So yeah, so here what I've just done is I've declared two parameters, the initial, that's the accumulator, and then the current value. And then here I'm saying take the current value and sum it with the take the initial value plus add the please can you mute yourself, please, if you're not talking to us. All right, so what I'm saying here is take this is the accumulator. So this is basically what keeps the total. Remember what I said? I said that the reduce method takes in a callback function. And this is a callback function. If you remember when we were talking about functions and different ways for you to create a function, this is one way using the arrow function. And that's what I've just done here. So this function, basically, we can say is a function that does sum, is a function that returns the sum of numbers, right? Now, but with the reduce method, we are looping through. What it does is that what this loop will do is what this reduce will do for you in one line, in one instance, like in one go. It doesn't need to start looping through and then incrementing by one, just like what this loop will do. No. This reduce method is a single method that you call, and it does that for you. It basically carries this function here and performs this function on all the elements in this array. And then finally, it will return the value of this total for you. So if I run this code now, let's comment this one out. If I run this code now, I can even comment this one out and then do const total value here, and then I log total value here. So if I run this and say it will return the total value of the array for us, you can see that we achieved this in just one line of code. So imagine that you're doing some operations within your code and you need to do something like this. All you just need is to just add one line of code. You might not even need to console log it, because in your code, you don't need to see it. You just need to take the value and use it where you want to use it. Do you understand? So you can do something like this. And you can even chain this to something depending on what you're doing, right? Does that make sense? I don't know if anybody did the calculation. Is the correct value 70?
Yes, it's 70.
All right, thank you. Okay, so this is reduce for you. And this could be anything, right? This could be maybe return the maybe say return the highest number, or maybe numbers that are divisible by 2. So you can even say return say maybe sum. So you will not check if num is num modulus 2 is equal to 0. Yeah. So if that is the case, we are return else, return none, right? So what we just did here, so this is something else now. I'm saying I want to return numbers that are divisible by 2, right? So let's do this. Numbers that are divisible by 2. Hold on. So let's say okay, hold on. Say sum modulus 2 is equal to this. If that is the case, then return sum. If not, return number. So let's see, because, okay, the first one, let's see, okay. So now what this does is, it returns one of these two, depending on the condition that is met, right? So for this first time, this current one now, I'm saying that if the current, the accumulator is a number that is divisible by 2, then return the number, right? They return the current, like the accumulator. Else, return number, right? So what it will do is it will now check, it will basically, remember this is basically called on all of these numbers. So at each point, this sum or the accumulator changes, right? And then at that point where it found a number that is divisible by 2, it returns that number. So what it means is that this particular thing will go the first round, divisible by 2. But when it got to 2, the number was divisible by 2. So it returned it. But the other condition that I did, where I said num, and then return, return sum, else return the number, and it returned 3. What happened is, when it's it's looping, what it's now checking is the current value, right? If the current value is the current value, basically. So this num is, it got to, so the current value, the first time when it goes to 1, this current value will become, sum will become 1. Then when it gets to 2, right, the number will be, when it goes to this index 2, and then it checks that the number is divisible by 2. So 2 is divisible by 2. So I'm now saying that it should return the sum. So what it basically does is that it returned the current sum that sum has, like the current value of this accumulator. Remember that the accumulator basically keeps accumulating the number, like adding it up, adding it up, adding it up, adding it up. So the first time sum was 1, right? So what it's saying is, once you get to, what this condition is saying is, once you get to the point where once you get to any odd number, basically the odd number, please return the current value of sum at the point when the number is even number, basically. If I change this to odd, so let's say numbers that are divisible by 3, right? This will change. If I run this, we're going to get a different thing. So it actually got all the way to this point. That's because it got, what happened now? So that's because it got to, when you get to number that is divisible by 3, yes, that's odd numbers, get the current value of sum. So for some reason, it actually got to this point. No, it didn't get to this point, but return the else return number. Okay, I'm confusing myself. Anyway, let me stop here. I'm trying to say that you can actually basically do any operations inside of here, right? You can decide to use it to, but remember that reduce actually returns a single number, right? So whatever operation that you're doing inside of here is going to return a single value for you. It will just do all the work, all the calculation. This one that I'm racking my brain to try to understand what is happening inside of this code that I've written. Reduce, it does not concern reduce. It has basically done the job and returned the value, the total value, or whatever value it is. At this point, this is not sum, actually. So this is not the total sum of the what is happening here is not the total sum of the array, basically. So yeah, and you can basically do something like, okay, this is numbers. So yeah, anyway, let's proceed. We'll get to that. So that's reduce for you. You can basically use it to do that sum or maybe division or maybe subtraction or whatever it is that you want to do just with the single function, right? So let's say some minus or maybe minus none. And okay. So yeah, you can basically do anything and then it will give you the result. Just know that the result is accurate. Yeah. It's always accurate. So what I did here is subtraction. We're subtracting all the numbers. So it said minus 68 somehow. So yeah, then that's reduced for you. So with just one line of code, what we're able to do here, we're able to do it here, right? Let me change this to plus so that we don't confuse ourselves. All right, so the next one is filter. And this is another method in JavaScript that basically creates a new array, right? So unlike the reduce method that returns a single value, the filter method returns an array containing elements that meet a specific condition in a callback function. So let's say you have a callback function that basically, I think this is what I was supposed to use for that example. That basically returns odd numbers or even numbers or whatever that are inside an array, right? Whatever the function that you give it does, it will return the array of element that meets the condition of what that function is checking for, basically. And this particular filter method also takes is also like a is a callback function or has a callback function that takes in elements, the elements, index, and then the array, right? So the element that you're performing the operation on, the current index of the element, and then the array that you're doing that thing on. And then this is where you put your condition. So, but the index, the array, they are both optional. You can decide to put them, you can decide not to put them. So I'll just comment this out and then we are talking about filter now. Okay. So even just like, I think it's basically just what the name is. So filter, to filter the things for you. So let me bring this down. Yeah, so the filter method, for example, we want to print out maybe the even numbers in this array, right? Remember, the method returns an array. So it means that we're going to be getting a new array, and the array will be array of numbers that are even numbers, right? So what you can do is you can say const, maybe even, or say even numbers, yeah? And then I'm going to call my numbers array, and then call the filter method on it, and then pass in a variable. So we can do put in a variable, say number, then or element, anything, remember, but you are referring to each of the items in this array. So you can say element of this array, and then you do call the function, and then put in the condition that should happen. So what you want, put in the logic for the function that you're putting inside of this filter method. So I can say, because I want it to return the even numbers, I can now say element, right? Say element modulus 2. I hope you guys remember what modulus is. Remember, where it is equal to 0. So this is it, basically. And if I console log even numbers, I'm going to get a new array containing even numbers, actually. So yeah. Please, so those people that did mathematics, is 0 an even number? Yes, I think. Is 0 an even number? It should.
Yeah, I was about asking same question that is zero an even
Yes,
number.
now zero is an even number.
0
Really?
is an even number, actually.
Zero
Wow.
is an even
Yes.
number. Yes.
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 So 0 is an even number. That's why it's returned 0 here. So if you look at the array, you can see that it has all the even numbers except for those that are odd numbers, which is like 1 and 3. I think we just have 2 odd numbers here. So let me do maybe add 5 and then maybe 7 here. And I change the logic to, let's say, equal to 1. 1. Right? So what this means is that numbers that when the 2 divide them, they will have remainder, right? Remainder 1 or something. Then, so this is that's for odd numbers then. So let me change this to maybe odd numbers. Say odd numbers. You know what? Let's leave this here. And then maybe write another one that returns odd numbers for us. Say odd numbers. And then we will print these out. Print the 2. So dot log odd numbers. So what this means now is that if I run this, we're going to get 2 arrays. The first one will contain even numbers. Second one will contain odd numbers. Sorry, I didn't change the logic. So if I run it again now, yes. So the first one contains even numbers and the second one contains odd numbers. So numbers that are not divisible by 2. So that is what we have here. So if I do say numbers divisible by 3, let me even use it to understand what happened in the previous system. Equal to 0. Then if I run this, okay. So it will only check the numbers that are divisible by 3. It's not returning odd numbers, actually. Numbers that 3 can divide without any remainder. So that's what happened here. All right. So that's for filter. So you can even do more operations. So maybe you have an array here, say const names. Okay, we had a name array somewhere. So yes, so let's say, oh, all of them are equal. Let me just create a new one here. So let's say we have names, and then we have, say, Obiageli. Then I have Emmanuel. And then I have Ola. Yeah. So now I have these 3 elements, right? So you can actually say, use to filter, can do some things here. So maybe I want to get, say, say, let me just call it new array, obviously, because it's going to be returning new array for us. So let's say new array, then names dot filter. Then we can give it a name, and then we pass in, yeah, so we can get the name where that is, maybe we want to get the names that are maybe that have more than 3 characters inside of them. So I can now say name dot length, yeah, is greater than 3, for example, or maybe greater than 5, yeah, depending on the condition you want to give. So what this array would do, what this method would do is that it will go through this array and return only the names that are great, that have more than 5 characters. So if I log new array, remember the return type of this is an array. So if I log this, I'm going to get Obiageli and Emmanuel. So what if I say less than, maybe less than or equal to 3? Say less than or equal to 3. Less than or equal to 3. So it means anything that is less than. So maybe we have hi. I don't know. Nobody answers hi. Maybe Chinese people share. But let's say hi. So what it means is that we should expect an array that contains 2, which is Ola and hi, because hi is less than 3 and Ola is equal to 3, right? So you can basically do different manipulations with this filter, but basically whatever condition you put here, the filter method will take this particular function and run it across all of these and then return the results for you. And the result is usually a new array of those elements that meet whatever criteria that you added here, right? If you like, say, maybe where name is equal to, say, Ola, and name is equal to Emmanuel. Yeah. So it means that it will return. Okay, so filter name where name is equal to this, and this thing that I put here does even make sense. Let me even ask myself. So first, this is supposed to be a condition, right? That I should check and then say, give it a give it what it should do. So let's say return the name, else tell us something else. So if I run this code, so I'm saying go in here, pick each of the name, check if name is equal to Ola. Check where name is equal to Ola and name is equal to, okay, yes, so that's wrong. So yes, it's actually doing what you should do. So what I'm saying is go to where name is equal to Ola and the name, let me remove this. And the name is also equal to Emmanuel, which is not possible. Because there's no name here that is equal to Ola and still equal to Emmanuel. So what I can do is say maybe where name is equal to Ola or where name is equal to Emmanuel. Then I can now get what I'm looking for. So yes. So like we remember what or and is. So that and would actually, that's why it's returned an empty array, because there's no place where we have name to be Emmanuel and still have name to be Ola. So that's why it's returned that empty array the first time. Then this time around, it returned Emmanuel and Ola because at each of these conditions, something was true at each point. When name was Ola, yes, it was true. The other case was wrong. So at each of the points where name was Emmanuel, the condition was true, basically, because we're using or. Remember what or is. So yeah, that's why it returned that. So yeah, you can basically do any form of manipulation using this array filter, but basically, it basically returns anything that match your condition or whatever condition that you have put inside of your function. So that's the filter for you. The last one we're going to be talking about is the map, the array.map method. So this basically creates a new array. So this one also has a return type of array by applying a transformation function. So a function that transforms the element of an array, right? So it basically does something that, so it basically, it also takes a callback function, right? And the callback function will basically do something with the array, transform the array, do something with it, and then the map will now return a new array of the modified elements of that array or something. So let's see, for example, so let's say we have, let me comment this. So let me say map. Now we can now do something like say const. Let me call it new array again. Then we will now call numbers.map, right? So the map would also take in some parameters. If you see here, it takes in a callback function, which requires, takes parameters, right? Or arguments, right? This argument is the value, which is the current value, then the index, then the array itself. All these methods, these three methods that we treated last, they take in almost the same kind of thing, except the first one, which taking like 4 parameters, but most of them are actually optional. So if you see some of the things I did here, I didn't really put all those plenty things because they are not, I don't need them, right? So, but you can if you want to. So now the function accepts 3 arguments and then it maps the method, calls the callback function one time for each of the elements in the array, and then returns an array that contains the result of what has happened. So let's say, for instance, we want to do exponentiation on each of these elements in this array. Say, let's say, array, each of these elements raised to the power of 2. Want to raise them to the power of 2, right? For each of the elements in the array. So what are we going to do? We're going to call this method, the map method, and then say, put in elements, so maybe num, and then that's the callback function here. And then I'm going to say num, so each of the number in the array raised to power of 2. Raised to the power of 2. This is exponentiation now. So what this map will do is that it will do each of these elements raised to power of 2. Do all of them and then return the array that contains the new values of this raised to power of 2 of these elements. I don't know if what I said is confusing just now. Okay, but let's see that in practice. So I'm going to run this code. All right. So now we have a new array that contains the result of these individual numbers in this array raised to the power of 2. If you want to, you can verify that. So 1 raised to the power of 2 is 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 raised to the power of 2 is 4. 3 raised to the power of 2 is 3 times 3, which is 9. And so on and so forth. 0 is 0. 4 times 4, which is 4 raised to the power of 2 is 16. 16. 5, 25. 7, 49. Then 10, we have 100, yeah? 10 raised to the power of 2 is 10 times 10. And then 44, that one, you verify that with your calculator, right? So that is what the map function would do for you. Or you can say, take each of the array, add 2 to it, say plus 2, right? You want to take each value in this array and add 2 to each of them. So if I log this new array now, we will be getting things like 3. Drink water. Don't drink water now. There's no water. Go and ask Auntie Foma to give you water. Go. Okay, so sorry about that. Yeah, so now we have the new array where we are adding 2 to each of the elements in this array. So basically, you can use the map method to map through the array and then call the callback function inside of this map method to do whatever you want it to do on each element of the array. And then it will return the new array that has been manipulated or updated by the condition or by the action in this callback function. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Because this is where we call it a day, an evening. Any questions so far? Any questions? Actually, this is really, I mean, these 3 methods, they are really good because they help you like do a lot with arrays without you stressing to like think too much about. So just what you just need to do is think about what you want to do. Is it the sum of the array I want to get? Okay. Think about the function that will give it to you easily. Maybe reduce, right? Okay, do I want to do, so do I want to apply a certain thing on each of the elements? And then you check, is it map that work? Or, I mean, Google is your friend. You can use Google to say, okay, I want to do this. Which of the array methods will do this easily for me? And then it will tell you, okay, this one or that one or that one. But first, you need to know what you want to do. And then you also need to know that these methods exist, right? Because if you don't know that they exist, you'll be racking your brain with how to go about doing this thing or achieving this particular goal. But now that you know that these methods actually exist and you can use it to do something like this, like the examples that I've given. So in the course of writing your program or your code or your test, if you now need to do something like this, for example, something related to, if you are not sure of which of the methods that will work best for you, you can just go to Google or use your ChatGPT or any of the AI tools that you are comfortable with using, and then ask which of these methods would help me achieve what I want to achieve easily, right? And then it will tell you which of them you can use, and then you've already seen how you can use them. You can just basically use them in one line, and then it will do what you want to do. And you can even map them together. Maybe you want to achieve something that requires you to use filter and then map it with map, or reduce and join it with map, right? You can do that. So, any questions? Any questions so far? All right, maybe it's me that will ask my questions now. Thank you very much, Oluwa Fumi. Okay. Thank you. All right, please, I have to go now. I've been on call, from one call to another since morning.
Thank you so much, Mary.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. See you guys.